and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the HyperConscious podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. Today, Alan and I are going to, for episode number 347, talk about perspective.
So what is interesting is last week, I believe, I had a dear friend of mine reach out to me with some less than ideal news about his perspective on the way in which we've worked together in the past. And what I realized is that he was focused on our interactions from one specific angle, and I was focused on our interactions from a different angle. And so what I've started saying, which Kevin said might seem fairly obvious, and that this is very connected with emotional intelligence and just, understanding other people and empathy. But if you really want to see the truth, we did an episode recently on being honest with yourself. You're going to have to technically, the only way to see the truth is a 360-degree view of one circumstance or one situation or one person. And so that requires different perspectives because we all see things from a different angle. So I had a really emotional time with this, and I realized that this is something that is a good lesson for me because Kevin said, well, this is the way he's viewing it, and
Right.
This is the way that you're viewing it, and you're going to keep running into this until you learn this lesson. And so I think I've finally learned the lesson, and I think that empathy is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And if you really want to get to the root of a problem, I think seeing multiple perspectives on it is super important.
That's what empathy is. So I was on a podcast the other day, and they said, we want to talk about emotional intelligence. And I said, yeah, I'm down to talk about emotional intelligence. I'm a big fan of what it is and the outcomes that you can get with it, and how you basically have to use it in every experience, every conversation, every interaction in life. What emotional intelligence is being able to solve problems that are emotional. It's to be able to understand. And I use the PMES system, and I use the Drive to 5 to say, like, when Alan and I meet somebody, we kind of know where they are.
Right.
I know your perspective.
Right.
If you lack confidence and you see me on stage, you might be intimidated.
Mm.
Or if I say, hey, let's take a picture, you might be intimidated.
Right.
So it's my job to know exactly the lens that you're seeing life through. That's what perspective is. If you're insecure, somebody who's very confident, from your perspective, might be arrogant. But that's because the contrast is different than somebody who is also confident. Right? So you have to take into consideration your experiences. You have to take into consideration your fears, your insecurities, your past. You have to take all those things into consideration when you're thinking of the way somebody else is seeing something. You also have to think and understand, what do they value? They value quality time more than I do. Okay, I should probably spend more quality time. They value fun, unique experiences. From their perspective, you might not be living up to the bar. Or you might not be living up to your side of the relationship.
Right. In every relationship, whether it's a friendship, a business relationship, there's certain value that's being brought by both parties. And that value is not necessarily the same thing. So this person that had given me this feedback valued very different things in a friendship than I did. We all have different sort of quote unquote unconscious rules.
Right.
And so one thing that's cool, just as a quick example here, and then we're going to end up going here. Imagine you go to a party. It's a 2-hour-long party. And imagine you've gotten in a really bad fight that was super traumatic earlier in your life. And you're like really afraid of parties because of this. You're afraid to get in a fight because when people get drunk, they tend to get rowdy and maybe fights break out.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine another person loves to fight and loves when fights get broken out. Okay. Neither person is right or wrong necessarily. They're two different perspectives. It's a 2-hour party. The whole party is a blast. Everybody's having a ton of fun. There's laughs, there's music, all that. A fight does end up breaking out. Both people leave that party. One person says that party sucked. That was horrible. That was my worst nightmare. A fight broke out. The other person said that party was great. Yeah, there was a fight, but it's not that big a deal. So one person has a completely different perspective on the same exact party. We are all doing that at all times. You give a speech to 1,000 people, that means you have 1,000 different reputations. You have 1,000 different perceptions on that speech. That doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. It just means you have to be aware of the fact that the truth is a perspective.
Yeah, and I think that it takes extreme ownership too.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like, if you say something to somebody, just because you're not trying to intentionally hurt them, but it hurts them, that's why I try to say the story I'm telling myself, AKA from my perspective, which may be skewed. It probably is, because maybe I'm insecure about something. Maybe I'm afraid. Maybe I just don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant when it comes to that fact. But we're all telling ourselves a story to some degree. Make sure that you're at least open to hearing the other person's story, because as long as they're trustworthy and you guys are open and connected and you're able to be vulnerable, they're not telling you to pull the wool over your eyes. They're telling you because that's the way they see it.
Right.
The front of the TV and the back of the TV don't look the same.
They don't. Exactly, man. Exactly. They don't look the same. It's a different angle.
Right.
So Emilia and I were on the phone in a virtual check-in yesterday, and I said, what's one thing that you wish didn't bother you, but that is bothering you in our relationship? Is there anything? And she had to end up letting Tucker go to bed. So she put Tucker to bed. She's like, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. And she came back and she's like, there is one thing. And it's interesting. It was when I'm done showering, I don't put like the shower mat like back on the ground. She's like, I would never normally complain about that. But I said, babe, I want to know all of it.
Right.
Like,
because it's not a big deal either.
It's super important to her that we make the bed first thing in the morning. I don't care. But if she cares, then I should care, because I care about her. And at the end of the day, that's ownership. From my perspective, the bed not being made is not a big deal. From her perspective, it is. Being aware is the only way to win, and that's what this is about.
Some would say hyperconscious.
Some would say hyperconscious. Exactly.
All right, we got to go right now because it is Monday, and we have the HyperConscious Mastermind at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is 5:55 as we record this episode. Yes. I was actually just talking to somebody who's getting the credentials to come on, so I was multitasking.
If you want a bunch of different perspectives on your challenges or other people's challenges, that's the place to be. That's actually what made me really realize this as well, is people were being vulnerable about what they're going through, and they were getting 12 different perspectives on the same challenge. Or the solutions were amazing. How
about this? You, in a conversation with a client, you and I are usually on the higher degree of meditation and mindfulness. Right. Erica Riesberg knows way more than we do.
Oh, way more.
That perspective is invaluable.
It's so cool.
Invaluable sounds negative. I don't like that word. Invaluable. You know what I mean?
But it's valuable.
Yeah, but it's invaluable. It's
I know.
Unreasonably valuable. It's a dumb word. I'm going to create a new one.
Those masterminds have become one of my favorite things because of this exact thing. Perfect. You think you know the truth, not until you get a lot of perspectives on it.
So we got to go now.
Yes, let's do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this. I challenge you to take extreme ownership and make sure you are trying to see things from other people's perspectives, because that's the only way you can meet them in the middle. And we hope you enjoyed this.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.